Apache woman left for wolves. Cowboy discovered her and swore never to abandon her. The land was dry, wide, and quiet, stretching far under the burning sun. The wind moved slowly across the tall grass and dusty ground, carrying the smell of earth and wild plants. This land had seen many seasons of pain, survival, and struggle. People lived close to nature here, and life was never easy. Every day was a fight to survive, especially for those who had very little. In a small Apache camp near the edge of the wilderness, a young woman sat alone inside a simple shelter made of wood and animal skin. Her face showed deep fear and tiredness. She had just given birth to a baby girl. The baby was very small, weak, and quiet. The mother held her close, but her hands were shaking. She was not only tired, she was afraid of what would come next. In this tribe, life was ruled by strict traditions and harsh reality. Food was not always enough. The land was dangerous. Sometimes, when babies were born too weak, people believed they would not survive. They feared that keeping such a child would bring more suffering to the whole group. These beliefs were painful, but they had been followed for many generations. The young mother looked at her baby's tiny face. The baby's eyes were closed and her breathing was soft and slow. The mother felt love, fear, and deep sadness all at once. She wanted to protect her child, but she also felt trapped by fear and pressure from others. She knew what the elders would say. She knew what was expected of her. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered soft words to her baby. No one else was inside the shelter. The camp was quiet. The wind outside sounded like distant voices. Her heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. She stayed there for a long time, holding the baby, hoping for a miracle, hoping someone would come and say it would be okay. But no one came. As the sun began to lower in the sky, the mother wrapped the baby in a thin cloth. Her hands moved slowly, like each movement was heavy with pain. She kissed the baby's forehead and held her one last time against her chest. Her body was shaking and her breathing became uneven. She did not want to do this, but she felt she had no choice. She stepped outside the shelter and looked toward the open wilderness. Far away, the land looked endless. Trees, rocks, and tall grass hid many dangers. People often spoke of wolves in this area. The wolves were feared and respected. They were part of the wild, strong, and smart, moving silently at night. The mother walked slowly away from the camp, carrying the baby. Each step felt harder than the last. Her feet moved, but her heart wanted to turn back. She kept telling herself that this was the way things had always been done. She told herself that the baby would not survive anyway. But deep inside, she felt a sharp pain that would never go away. She reached a quiet place near some bushes and rocks. The wind was cooler here. The sounds of birds and insects filled the air. The world looked calm, but her heart was not. She carefully placed the baby on the ground, still wrapped in the cloth. The baby made a tiny sound, barely louder than the wind. The mother knelt beside her. She touched the baby's small hand and felt how cold and fragile it was. Her tears fell onto the cloth. She whispered a final prayer, asking the spirits of the land to protect her child, even if she could not. She stayed there for a moment longer, trying to remember every detail of her baby's face. Then, with a broken heart, she stood up and walked away. She did not look back. Time passed slowly. The sun went down, and the sky turned orange, then purple, then dark. The stars appeared one by one. The night grew colder. The baby lay quietly, wrapped in the cloth, surrounded by tall grass and shadows. The world around her was big and frightening, but she did not cry loudly. She only made soft sounds. like she was too weak to call for help. The wind moved the grass gently. Somewhere in the distance, a long, low howl could be heard. Wolves were near. In the wild, wolves were known as hunters, but they were also known for their strong family bonds. They protected their own and cared for their young. That night, a small group of wolves moved through the area, searching for food and water. Their ears were sharp, their noses caught every strange smell. One wolf stopped. She lifted her head and smelled something different. It was not prey. It was not danger. It was something small, weak, and alive. The wolf moved slowly toward the bushes, her body low and careful. The other wolves stayed behind, watching. The wolf came closer and saw the small bundle on the ground. The baby made a tiny movement. The wolf did not growl. She did not attack. She only stood there, watching. Her head tilted slightly. There was something about the small human that did not trigger her hunting instinct. The wolf circled slowly, keeping distance. The baby's quiet breathing and soft warmth reached her senses. The wolf had recently lost one of her own pups. Her body and instincts were still strong with the need to protect and care. Something deep inside her responded to the tiny life in front of her. She did not understand what the baby was, but she understood weakness. She understood loss. She understood the need to protect. The wolf lay down a short distance away, watching through the night. She did not leave. She did not let other animals come close. If a sound came from the dark, she lifted her head and listened carefully. The baby remained alive through the cold hours, warmed only by the cloth and the nearby body heat of the wolf. As the night passed, the baby's tiny movements continued. She did not cry loudly, as if her body already knew that loud sounds could be dangerous. The wolf stayed close, guarding the area, her eyes alert, her ears moving with every sound. When morning came, soft light touched the land. The sky slowly turned bright. Birds began to sing again. The wolf stood up and looked around. The baby was still alive. In a strange way, the wilderness had become her first protector. Days passed. The area was not always the same, but the wolves returned again and again. The baby survived on small chances, warmth from the environment, and protection from danger. No human came looking. No one from the camp returned. The baby, who was believed to be lost, was still breathing. Stories would later be told about a child who should not have lived. People would say it was impossible. People would say it was just a legend. But in those first days, it was not a story. It was a tiny life, alone in the wild, protected in a way no one could have planned. The land that was meant to be her end quietly became the place where her life truly began. The baby did not die in the wild as everyone expected. Day after day, she remained alive, held by chance, quiet protection, and the strange kindness of nature. The land became her first home. The sounds of wind, birds, and moving grass were the first voices she ever knew. The smell of dirt, leaves, and rain became more familiar to her than any human touch. As time passed, the child grew stronger. Her tiny body slowly changed. She learned to move, to crawl, and later to walk on uneven ground. Her hands learned to touch rocks, grass, and tree bark. Her feet learned the feeling of hot dirt and cold morning dew. Pain and comfort both came from the same land. She did not grow up with human words. Instead, she grew up with animal sounds, bird calls, and the quiet language of the wild. She learned when danger was near by the sudden silence of birds. She learned when rain was coming by, the smell in the air. These lessons were not taught with words, but with experience. The wolves remained near her life, not always close, but close enough to protect the area. They did not treat her as food. They did not harm her. They accepted her presence as something unusual, but not dangerous. Over time, the child learned their patterns. She knew when they moved, when they rested, and when they hunted. She stayed small for her age, but she became strong in a different way. Her muscles grew firm from climbing, running, and hiding. Her eyes became sharp, always watching. Her ears learned to catch small sounds. Her body learned to be quiet, to move softly so that danger would not hear her. Loneliness was part of her life, even though she did not understand it fully. She sometimes watched birds flying together or animals staying close to their young. Something inside her felt empty when she saw that. She did not have words for family, but her heart felt a missing space that she could not explain. Seasons changed. Hot summers burned the ground. Cold winters made the nights hard and painful. Rain turned dirt into mud. Wind bent the tall grass. Through all of it, the girl survived. She learned to find small shelters in rocks, bushes, and hollow trees. She learned where water gathered after rain. She learned which plants made her sick and which helped her feel better. Sometimes she saw humans from far away. She would hide behind rocks or trees and watch them. Their clothes, voices, and animals felt strange to her. Their loud sounds scared her. She did not understand their ways. She only knew that they were different from the quiet world she lived in. When humans came near, she stayed still, holding her breath. Her heart would beat fast. She did not know why she was afraid, but fear lived deep inside her. Something in her memory, something from when she was very small, made her feel that humans were connected to pain and loss. At night, she sometimes heard human voices in the distance. Fires would glow far away. The smell of smoke would reach her nose. She watched from hills or behind trees, never getting close. She was curious, but fear was stronger than curiosity. As she grew older, her movements became faster and more confident. She could run across rocky ground without falling. She could climb trees with quick hands and strong arms. She learned to read the land like a map in her mind. Every hill, every river bend, every group of trees became part of her memory. She learned to survive on what the land offered. Berries, roots, small animals, and leftover food from larger hunters became part of her life. Hunger was a common feeling, but she learned how to manage it. Sometimes she went to sleep with an empty stomach. Sometimes she found enough to feel full. This hard life shaped her into someone who never took anything for granted. She did not think of herself as human or animal. She was simply a part of the land. Her body carried marks from small injuries, cuts, and cold nights. Each mark was a story of survival. Each scar was a reminder that life was never easy. People in nearby areas began to notice strange signs. Ranchers, travelers, and hunters talked quietly among themselves. They spoke of footprints that did not fully look like an animal's and did not fully look like a person's. They spoke of a fast-moving shape seen at the edge of vision. Some laughed and said it was only imagination. Others felt uneasy. Stories slowly started to grow. Some said there was a wild spirit in human form. Some said it was a lost child who had become part of the wilderness. No one knew the truth. The girl did not know these stories existed. She only knew her own life. There were moments when she felt something deep inside her that she could not explain. Sometimes when she saw her reflection in water, she would touch her face. She would look into her own eyes and feel confused. She did not look like the animals. She did not look like the birds. She was different. That difference made her feel uneasy, even if she did not understand why. She made simple sounds, small noises that were not real words. They were her way of expressing fear, excitement, or warning. These sounds were shaped by the wild, not by human language. If someone had heard her, they might not have known she was human. Danger was always near. Wild animals, harsh weather, and sickness were part of her daily life. She learned when to run, when to hide, and when to stay completely still. Her life depended on making the right choice at the right time. One winter, the cold was worse than before. Snow covered parts of the land. Food was harder to find. The body became thinner. Her strength was tested. She spent more time hiding from the cold than searching for food. Each day felt like a challenge. During this hard time, she came closer to the edges of human land than she ever had before. Hunger pushed her to take risks. She watched from far away as people stored food, cared for animals, and stayed near warm fires. The smell of cooked food was strong and tempting. But fear always pulled her back. She stayed in the shadows, watching, learning, but never stepping fully into their world. The memory of being left, even if she could not clearly remember it, lived deep inside her body. It whispered to her to stay away, to survive alone. Years passed this way. The wild girl became a young woman in body, though her mind was shaped by a life without people. She stood taller. Her movements became more powerful and controlled. Her eyes held a mix of strength and sadness, even if she did not know how to name it. She belonged to two worlds without knowing it. She carried human blood, but wild lessons. She was shaped by loss, but also by incredible survival. The land had raised her. The wind, the rain, and the quiet protection of animals had become her teachers. She did not know that her life was about to change. Somewhere beyond the hills, a man on a horse would soon ride into her story. A man who would see her not as a legend, not as a spirit, but as a human being. But for now, she remained a shadow of the wild, running free, watching from a distance, living a life that few would ever believe was real. The sun was just rising when the cowboy rode across the wide land. His horse moved slowly, tired from long travel. The cowboy had spent many years riding alone, working with cattle, fixing fences, and following trails that most people avoided. He was known as a quiet man who did not talk much, but he noticed everything around him. That morning, he was looking for a few missing animals. The tracks had led him far from his usual paths. The land here felt different. The air was still, the grass was taller. There was a feeling that something unseen was watching. As he rode, he noticed strange marks on the ground. At first, he thought they belonged to a young animal, but when he looked closer, he saw something unusual. The shape was not fully animal and not fully human. The step was light, but balanced. The trail showed careful movement, not careless wandering. The cowboy followed the tracks slowly. He did not rush. Years of experience had taught him that rushing often led to mistakes. His eyes moved between the ground and the land ahead. His hand rested calmly near his saddle, not in fear, but in readiness. The trail led toward a group of trees near a small stream. The water was clear and the ground was soft, making the tracks easier to see. The cowboy dismounted and tied his horse at a distance. He wanted to move quietly. As he stepped closer, he heard a small sound. It was quick and light, like a person stepping on dry leaves but trying not to be heard. He froze and listened. The sound came again, then stopped. The cowboy moved slowly, pushing a branch aside. That was when he saw her. She stood on a rock near the stream. Her body was tense. Her eyes were wide and alert. Her clothes were not like normal human clothes. They were made from rough materials she had found or taken from the land. Her hair was long and wild. Dirt and sun had shaped her skin. She looked strong, thin, and ready to run. For a moment, both of them stayed completely still. The young woman stared at him like a trapped animal. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her muscles were tight. Every part of her body showed fear and readiness. She did not understand who he was, but she knew he was human. And humans to her meant danger. The cowboy did not move closer. He did not shout. He did not reach out. He simply stood there, keeping his hands where she could see them. His face showed surprise, but also calm. "It's okay," he said softly, even though he did not know if she understood his words. His voice was low and slow, not loud or sharp. The sound of his voice made her flinch. She took a step back. Her foot slipped slightly on the rock. In a fast movement, she turned and ran. She moved faster than he expected. She ran across rocks and through trees like she was part of the land itself. The cowboy did not chase her. He watched her disappear into the bushes. He stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly, trying to understand what he had just seen. He had seen many things in his life, but never anything like this. Over the next few days, the cowboy returned to the area. He did not come with loud movements or many people. He came alone. He left small signs of peace. He placed food near the stream. He stayed at a distance. He wanted to show that he was not there to harm. From the trees and rocks, the young woman watched him. She did not understand his actions, but she noticed that he did not chase her again. She noticed that he moved slowly. She noticed that he sometimes sat quietly, not doing anything threatening. Hunger slowly pushed her closer. The smell of food was strong. It was different from what she usually found. Her body wanted it, even though her mind was full of fear. One day, she waited until he stepped away. Then she quickly came down and took some of the food. She ran back into hiding. Her heart beat fast. Her hands shook, but she ate, and the warm, rich taste made her feel something she had not felt in a long time. The cowboy noticed the food was gone. He did not smile, but inside he felt a small sense of hope. It meant she was still nearby. It meant she was alive. Day by day, this silent pattern continued. He would leave food, she would take it when he was not looking. Sometimes she would watch him from closer than before. Sometimes their eyes would meet for a second before she disappeared again. The cowboy began to speak softly, even when he could not see her. He talked about simple things. He spoke about the weather, his horse, the land. His voice was calm and steady. He wanted her to get used to the sound of human speech. Slowly, the young woman became less afraid of the sound of his voice. She still did not understand the words, but she felt the tone. It was not angry. It was not dangerous. It was gentle. One afternoon, she stayed in view longer than before. She stood behind a tree, half hidden. The cowboy saw her and did not move. He sat down on a rock and kept his hands in his lap. They looked at each other across a short distance. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also curiosity. He could see that she was human, but shaped by a life without people. His heart felt heavy with sadness and respect at the same time. He slowly placed a piece of food on the ground and pushed it gently toward her with a stick. Then he leaned back. She did not move at first. Minutes passed. Finally, she stepped forward slowly, every muscle ready to run. She picked up the food and stepped back again. Her eyes never left him. "Thank you," he said softly, even though he knew she did not understand. The words were for him as much as for her. This was the first real moment of trust. Over time, she allowed him to stay closer. She did not let him touch her. She did not let him come too near. But she no longer ran immediately. She stayed. She watched. She listened. The cowboy understood that this was not a normal situation. He saw a young woman who had grown up without human care. He felt a deep responsibility, even though he did not fully know why. Something in his heart told him that she had been alone for too long. He did not see her as a story or a mystery. He saw her as a person. And for the first time in her life, someone was looking at her not as a shadow, not as a strange shape in the wild, but as a human being who deserved care. Neither of them knew how hard the road ahead would be. But in that quiet place by the stream, something important had begun. Trust did not grow in one day. It grew slowly, like a small plant pushing through hard ground. Each meeting by the stream added a tiny piece of safety between them. The young woman still kept distance, but she no longer disappeared for days at a time. She began to expect the cowboy's presence. In a strange way, his quiet visits became part of her new routine. The cowboy stayed patient. He never tried to grab her or force her to come closer. He understood that fear was deep inside her. He had seen scared animals before, and he knew that sudden moves could destroy weeks of progress. So he spoke softly, moved slowly, and respected her space. One cold morning, the wind was strong, and dark clouds covered the sky. The young woman looked weaker than usual. Her shoulders were tight, and her steps were slower. The cowboy noticed this right away. He could see that the weather and long hunger were taking a toll on her body. He took off his outer jacket and placed it on a rock between them. Then he stepped back. He pointed gently at the jacket and then at her, trying to show that it was for her. She did not move at first. The wind blew harder. She hugged her arms around herself. After a long moment, she slowly stepped forward and picked up the jacket. The fabric was warm. She held it tightly, unsure what to do, then wrapped it around her shoulders. This was the first time she accepted something that belonged to him. The cowboy felt something heavy and emotional in his chest. It was not pride. It was a deep sense of care. He realized that this was no longer just about helping a stranger. He felt responsible for her safety. As days passed, he began to bring more useful things. Simple food, a small cup, a blanket. He never forced these on her. He always placed them where she could choose to take them or not. Choice was important. It gave her a sense of control. Slowly, she became a little more comfortable being near him. She sat on rocks instead of hiding behind trees. She stayed in view longer. Her eyes still watched him carefully, but they no longer held only fear. There was curiosity now. There was something close to trust. The cowboy tried to teach her simple words. He would point to himself and say his name. He would point to water and say the word slowly. He would point to food. Sometimes she copied the sounds, not clearly, but enough for him to see that she was trying. Every small step felt like a victory, but not everything was easy. One day, a loud noise came from far away. Other riders were in the area. The sound of voices and moving horses filled the air. The young woman froze. Her body went tight. Her eyes became wide with panic. Old fear rushed back into her. She backed away quickly, breathing hard. The cowboy stood up and gently moved closer to her, keeping his hands low and open. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." She did not understand the words, but she felt the tension in the air. Her body wanted to run. The wild inside her was stronger in moments like this. The cowboy realized something important in that moment. The world outside was dangerous for her in a different way. Not everyone would be patient. Not everyone would be kind. If the wrong people saw her, they might not understand her story. They might treat her badly. They might try to control her or scare her. That thought made something firm inside him. He knew he could not leave her alone. That night, sitting by a small fire near his camp, the cowboy thought deeply. He thought about her life in the wild. He thought about how she must have been abandoned. He thought about how long she had survived without anyone to protect her. He looked into the flames and made a quiet promise to himself. He would not walk away. The next day, he returned with stronger purpose. His voice was gentle, but his heart was firm. He brought a horse and extra supplies. He did not try to force her to leave, but he wanted her to know that he was ready to protect her if she chose to stay near him. He slowly pointed to his camp in the distance. He pointed to her. He placed his hand over his chest, a simple sign of care and promise. She did not understand fully, but she felt the meaning behind his actions. She had lived her whole life without anyone making promises to her. The idea of someone staying, of someone choosing not to leave, was new and confusing. She did not go with him right away. But she did not run away either. Days passed. She stayed near the stream, and he stayed nearby. They shared space in quiet ways. Sometimes they sat on opposite sides of the fire. Sometimes they watched the stars. He spoke. She listened. Sometimes she made small sounds back, her own way of answering. The cowboy noticed scars on her arms and legs, old marks from a hard life. Each one told a story of danger and survival. He did not ask questions. He did not need to. He could see that she had paid a heavy price just to stay alive. One evening, the weather turned bad. Rain fell hard. The wind was cold and sharp. The young woman had nowhere dry to go. The cowboy stood near his small shelter and looked at her standing in the rain, unsure. He held up the blanket and opened the shelter slightly, giving her space to choose. She hesitated. Rain ran down her face. Her hair was wet. Her body shook from the cold. Then, slowly, she stepped inside. This was a turning point. She did not sit close to him. She stayed near the edge. But she was under the same shelter, safe from the rain, protected from the cold. The cowboy did not move closer. He did not make sudden sounds. He simply stayed there, sharing the space in quiet respect. In that moment, something deep changed. For the first time, she was not alone in a storm. For the first time, someone stayed with her through discomfort and fear. The cowboy looked at her and felt a strong promise rise again inside him. Not just in words, but in action. He would protect her. He would teach her. He would stand between her and a world that might not understand her. He would not abandon her the way others had. She did not know the word for promise. She did not know the word for family. But she felt something new in her chest. It was small. It was fragile. But it was real. And it was the beginning of something she had never known before. The days after the storm felt different. Something had changed between them. The young woman no longer stayed only at a distance. She still needed space, but she now understood that the cowboy's shelter was a place of safety. The fire, the blanket, and his calm presence slowly became part of her new world. The cowboy began to help her in small, gentle ways. He showed her how to sit closer to the fire without getting burned. He showed her how to wrap the blanket around her shoulders to keep the cold out. He did not rush her. He knew that learning a new way of life after so many years in the wild would take time. She still spent many hours outside. The wild was part of her. She needed to run, to climb, to breathe the open air. The cowboy did not try to lock her into one place. He understood that taking away her freedom would break her spirit. Instead, he walked beside her when she allowed it and stayed back when she needed space. Slowly, he taught her more words. Simple ones. Water, fire, food, horse, home. Each word was spoken slowly and clearly. At first, she only listened. Then she tried to copy the sounds. The words came out broken and unsure, but each attempt was a brave step into a world she had never known. There were hard days, too. Sometimes, memories she did not fully understand made her suddenly afraid. A loud noise, a raised voice, a fast movement. These things could make her body freeze or pull away. The cowboy learned to watch her carefully. He learned what scared her and what made her feel safe. He never shouted at her. He never forced her. When she pulled away, he gave her space. When she came closer, he welcomed her with calm. Trust grew like a slow sunrise, not all at once, but little by little. One day, he brought a small mirror. He placed it on a rock and stepped back. She had seen her reflection in water before, but never so clearly. She looked into the mirror and froze. For a long time she stared at her own face. She touched her cheek. She touched her hair. Her eyes moved slowly, studying the human in front of her. Something deep inside her shifted. She was not an animal. She was not a shadow. She was a person. The cowboy watched quietly. He knew this moment was important. He did not speak. Tears slowly filled her eyes, not loud crying, just quiet tears that fell without sound. They were tears for a life she never had, tears for a childhood she never knew, tears for the loneliness she could not explain. The cowboy sat nearby, not too close, but close enough for her to know she was not alone. Later, he slowly began to share pieces of the human world with her. He showed her how to care for a horse, how to brush its coat, how to speak softly so it would not be afraid. She understood animals. This part came easier to her. The horse responded to her calm energy. It trusted her. This helped her feel useful. This helped her feel connected. As time passed, people in nearby areas became aware that the cowboy was not always alone anymore. He was careful. He did not bring her into towns right away. He knew the world could be unkind to those who were different. He wanted to protect her from judgment and fear. He wanted her to grow stronger first, stronger in body, stronger in mind, stronger in her sense of self. He helped her with simple clothes that were more comfortable and warm. At first, she did not like them. They felt strange on her skin, but slowly she learned that they helped protect her from cold and sun. Each new thing was a challenge. Each new thing was also a small victory. There were moments when she would sit alone and look toward the open land. The wild still called to her. It was her first home, the place where she learned to survive, the place where she learned to be strong. The cowboy never tried to erase that part of her. He respected it. He told her in his simple words and actions that she did not have to choose only one world. She could carry both inside her. One evening, sitting by the fire, she looked at him for a long time. Then she slowly placed her hand over her chest, copying the way he had done before. It was her way of saying something important. He understood. It meant trust. It meant connection. It meant that she accepted him as part of her life. The cowboy felt his eyes grow heavy. He looked away for a moment, not wanting her to see his emotion too clearly. He had lived a hard life, too. He had lost people. He had known loneliness. But this was different. This was not loss. This was healing. Over time, her words became clearer. Her understanding grew. She learned to laugh, a soft, unsure sound at first. The sound surprised her. She touched her mouth when it happened, as if trying to understand it. The cowboy smiled when he heard it. It was a sound of life, a sound of hope. Slowly, she learned about her past. Not all at once, only small pieces. The idea that she had once been a baby in a human camp. The idea that she had a mother somewhere, even if she would never know her. These ideas were heavy, but they also helped her understand herself. She was not born from the wild. She was born human. That truth hurt. But it also gave her something new. Identity. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a woman with a story, a woman who had been abandoned, a woman who had survived, a woman who had been found. The cowboy kept his promise. He stayed, through fear, through hard days, through slow progress. He did not walk away when things were difficult. He did not give up when she pulled back. He proved with his actions that abandonment was not the end of every story. In time, she stood taller. She spoke more. She smiled more. She still carried the wild in her eyes. But now, she also carried peace. The land that once almost took her life had shaped her into something strong. The man who found her gave her something she never had, a place to belong. And in that belonging, her life truly began again.